Yo, what's going on everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 710 Reviews UK. I hope you're all doing good. And today, people, I want to talk about Pietella. Now, before we get into this, just remember to do the standard stuff like comment, subscribe, share this stuff so you can see all of the good stuff that I post about green, about rigs, about anything to do with the scene that we all know and love. But now, as I was saying, I want to talk about Pietella, and I actually have some Pietella here. But what is Pietella and why is it considered the best hash in the world? Now, for those who don't know, Pietella is essentially 6-star full melt. There's a rating that kind of goes on for like hashes and rosins and stuff, depending on how clean it is, how much it melts, varying other factors. Now, Pietella is meant to be the tippy top, the creme de la creme, people. But why is that? So first off, it starts with the process of making hash. Now, to know this, you need to know the people that essentially created Pietella. That would be Uncle Farms, and depending on who you're talking to and where you get your information from, you may have heard of people doing this type of method of cold curing back in sort of 2015, 2014 days, but it was super underground and really only done in Barcelona. Now, a lot of people call Pietella just a form of hash, but technically the only real Pietella that you can get is from Uncle's Farms. It isn't necessarily a type of hash, rather an actual brand of hash. Now, if you don't know how Pietella is actually made, it follows a very similar sort of process as to making fresh frozen live rosin or anything like that. Making some whole plant fresh frozen product, that means it's been harvested from the stem and immediately frozen. There's been no drying, no trimming needed. That's then put into essentially a large bucket or a portable washing machine filled with freezing cold water along with a lot of ice. That's then mixed together to essentially snap off all of the trichomes that is on the actual plant. That is then filtered through many micron bags. Now, if you were to make rosin, once that's been filtered through the micron bags, you would essentially take out the different micron levels, put them in separate trays with parchment paper, and you would then freeze dry them to remove all of the moisture. That then leaves you with like a sort of like crumbly, really soft bubble hash. That bubble hash is then put into some sort of bag, like a press bag, and is then pressed with pressure and heat, and then you get live rosin. Super nice, but Pietella's different. Now, the reason that Pietella is different is because rather than pouring it all out and stuff, they let the whole of the ice melt. And I believe that this is done because it's a type of cold curing method and stuff that's very exclusive to this, and they're really trying to make it as precise as possible. I mean, instead of drying it all and stuff, obviously they let all the ice melt, let everything go, and then they would essentially put the product into what would be called like a Pietella wrap. It kind of looks like the same stuff that they would use on like a temple ball, if you've ever seen one of those. And then they seal that off from any sort of oxidization, whether that be a vacuum chamber or whatever. And then this is left to cold cure for however long the sort of producer deems necessary. Now, curing is such a particular thing, and it can be very sort of like dependent on the actual extractor that's doing it. I couldn't really tell you the curing process for a lot of hashes, but that is essentially what Pietella is. Now, because Pietella is considered a full melt, you should technically be able to dab this. You should be able to put it in a Puffco rig and it fully melt, or a typical banger and torch method, and it should just be able to full melt on that. Now, saying this as well, you can also do what a lot of people like to do, which is put it into a doobie and do what's called a donut joint. If you've seen donut joints before and stuff, you'll see most people using rosin, roll it up into like a sausage shape, put it in the middle of your joint or like around about the quarter way point, roll it up, and then you get what would be called like a donut hole in the middle when you actually smoke it. Now, doing this, you are going to get the most amount of terps from this, not necessarily just from doing a donut joint, but by smoking something like Pietella, you are going to get a really unfiltered amount of terps because you're only getting the trichome heads. It's similar if you're smoking something like Static Sift, you're only smoking trichomes. It's pungent power for you. Now, leading on from that, how does the FTP one stack up? So this isn't by no means some like absolute 6-star full melt and stuff, and I can kind of tell that just by looking at it, as it's slightly harder than I would have typically liked my Pietella to come. And also as well, a lot of people don't realize this. Pietella isn't just a form of hash. It is technically a specific batch of hash from Uncle Farms, and the rest of it isn't technically Pietella. It's just cold cure hash, but everyone kind of run with it, and it's kind of just become Pietella now. We have some purple papaya Pietella here. You may remember if you've watched any of my earlier reviews and stuff, I actually did a purple papaya live resin review from the same guys. It was super purple, very similar to this. And the only reason that they're purple is because I'll put the name somewhere up here. There's basically a specific molecule that makes flowers come out a certain color. This flower was clearly very purple and had a lot of that that specific molecule is water soluble. Now, when you're doing stuff like Pietella, as all of it is extracted in water, there's no solvent, that can leak through and stay in the actual trichomes, and you get a more purple hash. It's really, really cool. There's nothing wrong with it. It just looks cool, but a lot of people don't like it. They want the hash to look very, very clean and golden. This isn't that. But this is purple papaya, so obviously genetics will be like down below somewhere or wherever we need them to be. I'm going to take a dab of it because I want to compare the two. Is this really as full melt as people say, or is it not? So what we're going to do is now I'll do like a little bit of a smell test, because like we can actually do that with this one. Damn, people, this is smelling fucking good. It's strong. It's got really strong fruity notes. Obviously papaya terps coming through hella strong, with like this real nice sort of just like citrusy background note. It smells incredibly nice, but it's all about how it smokes. Now, if you want to see how this sort of like hash actually looks like, click on any of the pop-up banners that come up and stuff. They'll lead you to the short section of my YouTube channel. You can see all of the products that I have in the reviews. You can see them in their unfiltered glory. Obviously, if they get age restricted, it doesn't matter because they're there for that specific reason, but go check them out, especially this Pietella, because it's looking very nice. So I've just now had my hit of the purple papaya Pietella from FTP, and I need to give you my overall thoughts on how I found the experience. So I'll say this, that is one of the smoothest like hash dabs I have ever had. Like, it really doesn't get on your chest. It's super smooth on your throat. There's no sort of like, when you're smoking hash, you can kind of get a bit of a throat kick with it and stuff, especially if you're like smoking it in like a doobie or whatever, and you need like a charcoal filter. This really has none of that. It's such a clean smoke. Like I've said in some of my other reviews, when it comes to like flower and stuff, this just more or less feels like you're breathing air. Like, yeah, sure, like you will cough in general and stuff, but that's more just because you're taking a dab. Like there comes a point where it's kind of almost unavoidable to not like cough when you're dabbing. So zero complaints on the smoothness or anything like that. Absolutely phenomenal. The actual taste is very similar to the smell. It's super tropical, very sort of like sour fruity notes going on, and I think that's generally because of like the papaya terp that comes in quite strong from this. But papaya terps, my god, my stammer, work way better in extract form than they do flower form anyway, so it's just magnified with it. It is so pleasant to smoke. Moving on to sort of like the looks of the actual Pietella, it looks great. I do believe that the Pietella probably could have done with an actual like cure. I don't know how it was handled prior to me receiving it. I don't know if it was ripped in like a Pietella foil and kept in like a fridge between a certain like 4 and 10 degrees or whatever. So I probably would have said that it requires a little bit of a cure if you were to buy it. But moving on from that, the looks of it look absolutely amazing. Like, it is a very nice looking bit of Pietella, outside of the fact that it could be a little bit wetter rather than as dry as what it is. It's super nice, and it's like a purple color. I know it's purple papaya, and this is sort of similar to how the live resin one, which was also purpley. It's just really nice to see that in like a hash form. But yeah, that was an absolutely amazing smoke. I have no real complaints, bar the fact that it probably should be cured for a little bit longer, but that's something I can handle on my end. But yeah, if you've been smoking along to this one, let me know what you've been smoking, and we'll be back next time for another episode of 710 Reviews UK.